morning. What's happening, family? Welcome to the show. It is Michelle Bryant here at WNOV, 860 AM, 106.5 FM. You are listening to Say Something Real. And I just want to say, real talk. I am real thankful for the lessons I learned from my mom and my grandfather, mostly my mom on this one. Robitussin, Robitussin, Robitussin. When I tell y'all I'm sick as a dog right now, I knew the exact moment yesterday when I caught a cold. The exact moment. I could look at the watch and tell you what time it was when I caught this cold. And I was down for the count yesterday. Alka-Seltzer Cold Plus is one of the only things that can help me when I get sick. And then so that helped me go to sleep. And then to be able to get up this morning, man, I just drank like a half a bottle of Robitussin. I'm like, I'm gonna be high doing this show, so I'm not responsible for what I say. But I just want to say Robitussin, the cure all. I my voice even sound good because my voice sound like Barry White when I got up this morning. And snot bubbles everywhere. I'm just, oh, you gonna do that? You gonna do it? When I tell you, yeah, the voice was deep this morning. I said, man, I'm gonna sound a hot mess on the radio this morning. And the Robitussin got me straight enough to be able to sit up. I could still, everything's still burning in my throat. I can feel all of that. So I just want to say, glad that I'm here this morning, but I ain't playing. I'm barely standing. Let me say good morning to the bros in the building. Clark Kent.
Who you with?
Man, I guess not with Giannis no more, but I can go stand down by the mural and look at him since they said they're not going to take it down. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting that they're not going to take it down. I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
When they gonna take it down?
What'd you say?
When they gonna take it down? Who gonna become the next superstar? The franchise
They're not
player?
gonna take it down.
Yeah, they said they're gonna leave it.
Who's gonna be the franchise player now?
Well, all of
Next in line.
Right now, who gonna be the franchise player now?
Next in line. We don't know.
Who you think?
Man, I have no clue. But they said, man, that this new guy, Nate Ament, 6'11", wingspan 7'1". So they said that he's still growing, so he can shoot, he can dribble. So he's really like a younger version of Giannis, as they are projecting, but we'll see.
Okay. All right.
So how are you this morning, Jermaine Rideout?
Shell, you know, still growing, so I still feel the same way, Shell.
What is that? How do you feel?
Oh no! We suck again.
Yeah, I heard you sounding
But you know, sometimes you gotta lose to win it. You know, Fantasia said it the best.
What?
Sometimes you gotta lose to win again.
Well, somebody actually said it before her.
Oh.
Well, really not that way. So I'm gonna fall back on it. My song was different.
Oh.
Somebody's got to lose. Somebody's got to win. So I don't know if Miami's winning. I don't know if we winning.
Well,
but you know, I didn't pay attention to the trades last night because I was underneath the bed. But from what I'm hearing, it sounds like we might be okay.
Yeah, well, from the picks that we got, Brandon Burris and Nate Ament, you know, two top high ceiling players. So we'll see how it goes.
What'd you call them?
High ceiling, like they got a high ceiling.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So we'll see how that go.
And how are you otherwise?
Well, Shell, you know, now that that's over, meteorologist Mano Candela, it was partly cloudy with a chance of meatballs. So bring an umbrella. We don't know what's going to happen out there. Also, Shell.
Yes, sir.
You know, I'm feeling in my spirit. Today is Wednesday. And, you know, someone asked the question.
No one.
And that someone is me.
No one asked.
That's it.
Oh, you going to sing it,
You
Clark,
caught
for
on
me?
to it. Who do I trust? Me. That's who.
That's not how it goes, Clark. It's no one asked the question.
Why?
No. That's how it goes, Clark. All right, we ready.
So you know, Shell,
what's your question for the day?
I think I got one for you.
Okay.
Might trip you up.
All right.
Like your shoes might be untied on this one.
Oh, come with it.
So if the Earth is the third planet from the sun, wouldn't that make all countries third world countries? Make you say, huh? I mean,
you making my Robitussin wear off.
I was just about to say you need another shot.
I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So if the planet is the third planet from the sun, wouldn't that make all of the countries third world countries?
No. Somebody said no because there's a third, fourth, and fifth, Jermaine. Oh my God. So when we see the terminology, we have to understand that there are different meanings. Being the third planet from the sun is a fact of astronomy, whereas third world is a term originally created during the Cold War to describe a country's political alignments.
So what you say, pastrami? I like bologna too.
Yes. It's connected to meat,
Hey, somebody said. Somebody might read this right here.
What? Which one?
Right.
Better question. If I dive into dry ice, can I swim without getting wet? You got people looking up their own questions. Wednesday question. You know what? We'll answer that one after the break. Hey, let me write it down. If I dive into dry ice.
That's a good question. I wish I'd have thought of that.
Can I swim without getting wet? Well, can you swim in any kind of ice? Okay, we'll answer that. But yeah, Jermaine, one is astronomy. people are appalled by you.
Hey, this is Jermaine Michelle High.
Yes, that is the one. Let's highlight that comment. Jermaine, you blowing Michelle's high. I told you the Robitussin just immediately wore off, and all of a sudden my voice dropped back down, and you know. I feel sicker in this moment because of a question. So yeah, Jermaine, I just want to thank you.
You know,
I want to thank you,
Heavenly Father,
for the
question. See, y'all adding the wrong stuff to the song.
Me, that's all. Me.
I want to thank the devil for testing me.
I tried to trip you
and
up,
helping me stay strong, because you know you able to get through these tests
and trials.
Let me just say this real quick. I see we got a caller this morning. A lot of folks know we have had Milwaukee Alderman Alex Brower in the studio a couple of times talking about We Energy's rate increases, whether or not this should be a privately or publicly owned municipal utility. And so there is a meeting happening this morning down at City Hall. Someone wanted to know if I was going to talk about it. Alex has sent me the information that the meeting was occurring. And let me just tell y'all this. So I'm working from my cell phone this morning because my charger on my computer is not working. So I got to go to get my computer fixed this morning, my laptop. But, or, try to get a new power cord to figure out what's going on. But today, hang on, that's not the one I want. Okay. So this is actually from a press release that was done back in May. And this is going to be at the heart of the conversation today. Alderwoman Marina Dimitrievich had requested from the Legislative and Fiscal Services Division of the city that she needed a memo regarding the We Energies rate case. So they responded to her, and that memo has been made available. You requested a memo to provide context for Common Council file, blah, blah, blah. Resolution opposing We Energies request to increase utility rates and authorizing the city attorney to intervene in We Energies 2728 rate case. On April 30th of 2026, the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin opened a proceeding to consider We Energies request to increase its 2027-2028 rates. The request would increase the typical residential customer's utility bill by $14.67 per month, or 10.28%, effective January 1st, 2027, and by an additional $8.69 per month, or 5.2%, effective January 1st, 2028. So you would get two hits. You would get the hit in 2027 that takes your bill up by $14.67 a month. You would get a second hit in January of 2028 that would take that up by an additional $8. So you're talking about over the course of 2 years, you could see about a $250 a year increase in your utility bills. An extra an extra almost $24 a month in your utility bill. Typical small commercial industrial customers' electric bills would increase by 6.10% in 2027 and by 5.22% in 2028. These proposed changes are in addition to other recent We Energies rate increases. December 2022, the PSC approved an 11% increase in the electricity costs for We Energies residential customers. In 2024, the Public Service Commission approved a 13 to 14% increase in the electricity costs for We Energies residential customers. So they just got an increase in 2024 in what they could charge by 13 to 14% about what you could charge residents. And now we are looking at this again, just a year and a half or so later. So there's some additional analysis that was done. And they talk about the typical bills and what they could look like. Back in 2006, they said a typical residential We Energies bill was $72 back in 2006. Today, that typical bill is $143. So it has doubled. And if these proposed changes were to go into effect, it would be about $166 for a typical bill. So I just want to flag that. And then, Alex Brower had been talking about this is why this needs to not be in a privately held company's hands. This needs to be in the public's hands so that you don't see these kinds of rate hikes every other year. You are pricing people out. One of the things that I'm going to be doing this morning is talking to Aber Fortson and Walter Lanier regarding the upcoming gubernatorial candidates forum that's happening this Saturday over at North Division High School. And one thing that's interesting, just to note, is that We Energies, they play politically. We, know that corporate money, corporations are basically viewed as people, so they get to donate to candidates. And one of the things that has been pointed out is that one of the gubernatorial candidates, Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez, they talked about her being provided thousands of dollars in contributions after she a vote favoring the utility tax loophole. The thing I think that's interesting, and I got to go and read the story because I haven't read the story, but the flag that was being raised is that she's accepted political donations from We Energies while crossing party lines to support giving the utility company a tax loophole. So you remember Sarah Rodriguez was a state representative before she became lieutenant governor. As lieutenant governor, she does not take these votes. But she was a state rep. And so some of the reporting says that, We Energies gave her about almost $14,000 back between 2020 and 2023. So it's just one of those things that, you got to be conscientious about. In 2021, she was one of 4 Democrats who voted with every single Republican on AB 191, which was a bill to repeal the personal property tax. Governor Evers ended up vetoing it, warning it could exempt utility personal property from ad valorem taxes and cost Wisconsin's, quote, tens of millions in general fund tax revenue, if not more. And Rodriguez again accepted a $12,800 contribution from the WEC Energy PAC. That's the We Energies PAC. But I want to be clear. There are a lot of people that get donations from We Energies. They play the field. But what you will note, though, is that like some people will get a $500 donation, a $1,000 donation. And depending on what your campaign limits are, and lieutenant governor is significantly different than what you can get as a state senator, state rep, common council member. The donation limits are different. So I'll have to go back and see what is the max contribution you can make to a lieutenant governor's race, to a lieutenant governor's campaign. But yeah, these companies hedge their bets and they, court legislators to get favorable policies. And whether folks say, somebody just text me, that's conflict of interest. If we have seen nothing, particularly in this current congressional cycle that we are in right now, the line has been blurred, crossed, stomped on in terms of the relationship of corporations to the legislators that are making policy that directly impacts their industries. Insider trading, the Trump team, there have been all these stories about how these people have enriched themselves, playing in markets with insider information. So I just want, as we go to break, I just want people to understand that, yes, these contributions are going to happen. They happen, they give across the board. They give to Democrats and Republicans. But it's a different kind of give if you understand somebody potentially is about to be the governor. I'm just saying. Let me take a break, y'all. I'll be right back.
Real with your host, Michelle Bryant on WNOV.
All right, family, welcome back to the show, and good morning to everybody that's joining. Let me go to the phone line. Got a caller that's been on hold. Hey, caller, what's happening?
Hello, how you doing, Michelle?
I'm good, bro. How you doing this morning?
Doing pretty good. I hope you get over your cold.
Oh, I'm trying, fam. Thank you.
Yeah. I remember yesterday, and when you was going off, you was talking about the subject of hating ourselves.
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to get on because this Mitch used up the last of the time, because when we came on, it was about like 5 to 9, so I knew I wouldn't be able to get on.
Okay.
But I'm gonna make this short as possible.
Go
I
ahead.
think the reason why we hate each other because we're under influence or being brainwashed. It's just almost like being back in Jim Crow time, like you see somebody on one side of the street is white, you have to cross over to the other side. It's almost like back in the days when they had this big billboard over Russia and Spain and stuff, like they were brainwashed because they kept saying what they need the citizens of their country do over and over and over and over. After a while, that the information began to transfer from your conscious mind to your subconscious mind. So what I think like what's happened to us, we've been taught, just like little kids are taught to hate. We've been taught to hate ourselves as far as our complexion, our hair texture, and stuff like that over and over and over again by the Europeans. And after a while, we began to start believing that, as far as we are less inferior to they're supposed to be superior over us. So that's why I think like we start being, influenced and brainwashed as far as how less we are of them.
All right. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that comment. And I certainly concur with much of what you said. Let me go to the next caller. Hey, caller, what's happening?
Morning, Michelle. This is John. How you doing?
Hey, John. How are you this morning?
Pretty good. Jumping off that fella that just called.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of people, like myself, for instance, I would never have said I'm a white guy. It would have been so embarrassing. I literally hated that aspect of my heritage. I'm also Jewish. I wasn't embarrassed about that. I wasn't sure because I was raised kind of crypto, white, moderate, progressive. So I didn't have any really sure knowledge. I thought everybody ate matzo crackers. I thought everybody had it in their closet. Never even thought about it. Thought everybody had Manischewitz in their closet. Never even thought about it. And my parents explicitly told me, no, well, we kind of raised you Lutheran, which is kind of, pastel color, mainstream Lutheran, the kind that's the most progressive. So part of the World Council Church, it's just moderate progressive on every issue. So I had to learn about this stuff. I had to push myself. And I always had an idea that Arabs and Muslims were literally our cousins. I had no concept that they were bad people. In fact, I even took the side that, well, why don't the Israelis learn Arabic? I thought, why did they start? And they had a chance to start over. Why didn't they learn Arabic? So then as I learned, I realized there's another world out there. So talking about how you taught to self-hate or deprecate yourself, even though I didn't hate Jewish people, I thought, it was like this embarrassment. I said, why is dorky looking Menachem Begin sitting there with cool looking Yasser Arafat? Why is dorky guy Begin wear a suit and Arafat's this cool looking Che Guevara type guy? Oh, speaking of Che Guevara, remember you said about the detective guy? It's Peter Falk. Remember you were talking about the
yes.
The detective. We watched that too, and he's a Jewish guy, and he played the Cuban sort of prototype on the Twilight Zone, The Mirror, in addition to his detective show. And he played the Cuban-like, stereotype of the revolutionary Castro type surrounded by his Che Guevara friends. And the Batista guy comes up there and warns him about the mirror. He said, you're going to get paranoid. You're going to end up. And he did. He started killing all of his own friends. But anyways, and on this subject, the idea of brown versus white. There's a list compiled of Jewish people that are obviously different than white, and it's surprisingly, not to me, but many of them are, as Americans, mostly Ashkenazic. So it kind of breaks the stereotype that Ashkenazics are fake, they're white people converted to Judaism, which right there is a goofy thought because Jews don't convert people that much. 2,000 years of somebody who looks like the vice president lady who was part Asian and Indian and part black, but she's light complected. Then you give her 2,000 years of being around white people, she's going to come up with some great grandchildren. Am I wrong? Do you think that's reasonable to say that somebody like the Vice President Kamala Harris would end up, even if she sticks to her own so-called own people, sooner or later there's going to be some mixing if you're in Europe for 2,000 years. So to say that Jews are fake white people, fake Jews, and thus my converts, it's not even logical. But let's talk about Lebanon, if you don't mind. You mentioned it yesterday. So how would you define the Lebanese kind of social, cultural, ethnic framework, the layout? How would you define that in your own way? It's nothing perfect. You don't have to worry about being perfect because it's impossible to get Lebanon perfect. So how would you define it in your viewpoint? What is your image?
Well, I think as opposed to me defining it, why don't you just go ahead and make the point that you want to make about it, and then we can have that discussion.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So, like I said, there's no perfect description, but it was set up as a half and half Muslim and Christian society during this whole mandate period, and it was a takeoff on the Ottoman Turks, what they call millet system, where each local community kind of ran their own society at a local level. So you had your own judges, your own courts. It's called personal status in the Islamic world. So, and the Turks called it the millet system. So each of the different communities had their own local semi-autonomy. And so they figured, well, Lebanon's already in that kind of sort of framework. So then they created a constitution where they would have like a prime minister. I was getting mixed up. One guy's the prime minister, the other one's the president. One would be Muslim, one would be Christian. Then the Druze were this third category. They got like, I don't know, Secretary of State or something like that. You get the drift. It's sort of like a categorizing of different ethno-religious, ethno-linguistic groups. So the Maronites, that group I told you about in Milwaukee that have a little like a monthly meeting or something like that at a Catholic church somewhere on the northwest side. Like the Coptics of Egypt, these are people who speak a language, a native language, but now because of hundreds of years of Arabization, which is like a carrot and a stick, you either go with us or you're going to be second class, third class, or fourth class citizen, like that millet system. You're not equal if you're a Christian or a Muslim under the strict versions of Islam. You are like you guys said, you look down at the ground, you don't look the guy straight in the eye, you never talk back to him. You need an extra Muslim. You have automatic supremacy. You have the male supremacy, you have the automatic Islamic supremacy. So if you're a Christian or a Jew, or if you're not a Christian or Jew, you're in trouble. You're in real trouble. Convert or die or be a slave. So all this stuff goes into Lebanon, and so this went into the civil war in Lebanon when in the 1970s through the 90s, then they had that Sabra and Shatila massacre where Palestinian Arabs were fighting with the Maronites, and the Maronite militias killed a bunch of, allegedly, I don't know for sure, but allegedly the story goes, they killed a bunch of civilians. And the usual story, women and children, unarmed women and children. So the Palestinian Arab refugees, living in these camps in and around all over the Middle East, in particular the Levant. So Israel was supposedly standing by and just watching while their allies, the Christians, were slaughtering these Palestinian Arabs. This is a big hullabaloo in the 70s where all the radicals who hated the Christians, not necessarily because they're Christians, but because they were not Arabists. And the leftist radicals would always call them, this at UWM, I was still learning about it. They would say they're fascists, the Phalangist Party, fascist. And Phalangist does not mean fascist. It means like your phalanges or your fingers. So it's one of those, I think it's a Greek word. But so the big parties, the Lebanese National Front, just like today, right now, they're finally, including the moderate Sunnis and Shiites and Druze, are finally coalescing, saying, Iran out, Hezbollah out, yes, Israel out. We don't want any foreigners on our soil. And if you'll notice, they'll say, please stop attacking, and Hezbollah stop attacking Israel. So they said, put down, Hezbollah must be absorbed into the society and stop being a separate nation within a nation. We already have enough trouble with our so-called binational Christian versus Muslim. So Lebanon is like a microcosm of what would happen if Israel disappeared, the whole Palestine region, especially if they have this so-called return where all Palestinian Arabs, which is 15 million people, and if, let's say, all Jews went to Israel and all Palestinian Arabs went there, and you would have a 15 million, to 15 million people. Now, even if you just kept the numbers like it is now, and only a certain amount came, and they had the so-called single from the river to the sea, even if it's not a mass murder, as the more radical Zionists would say, that it would be like Lebanon automatically, because it would be immediately a society of what they call binational, and with entirely distinct languages. Well, it'd be kind of, Hebrew and Arabic are about half the same, so it's not entirely different. But the point is that when these guys in Lebanon, the Shiite Hezbollah types, are attacking Israel, remember they attacked the Druze, whether it was by accident or not. They killed a couple of Druze in Golan Heights, a couple of kids in a playground and stuff like that. And does that ring a bell? Do you remember it? This is maybe a couple of years ago, a year ago.
No, I remember. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so good. And then when the Syrian government was collapsing, and the Jolani, the new guy, started attacking the Jews, and these various Arab militias started attacking the Jews, and the Jews were saying, Israel, please take over. Please absorb us, create a zone or something, do something. And Trump stood by, and Israel stood by. It looked like they were waiting for the world to make sure, you guys see what's going on before we invade. You guys just watch while they keep slaughtering the Jews. And any day now, we're going to go in there. Israel's going to go in there, and we're going to protect, because the Jews in Israel serve in the military, and the Jews are voters. They're very loyal. They're very loyal to wherever they go. So that why it was an extra shock for the Jews to have Arabs attacking them, because they're loyal to wherever their neighbors are. They're really neighborly people. They don't intermarry with anybody, and they claim Muhammad's uncle.
Hang on, John.
Sorry.
I'm actually up against a break. So let me just have you bring the point in just a bit, so then I can respond after we come back from the break.
Okay, I hate it when you do that. Because then I'm stuck. Then I gotta wait till next time. But it's your show. So
No. Go ahead. I mean, it's just that I have guests coming in at 8 o'clock.
Yeah,
and so
that's why I wanted to get in early, because you have such a jam-packed show. Yeah.
So go ahead. Go ahead and make the remainder of your point.
Okay, so you see how it's a multicultural society, and you'll notice how quiet the Maronites have been. And so I looked up this morning. I know the proportion of Muslims to Christians has shifted dramatically, so it's overwhelmingly Muslim now. So I said, is this because of the Palestinian Arab migrant refugees? No, it's also because of the higher birth rate, and because Christians overwhelmingly form the diaspora from Lebanon. So it's a complete reversal, and because of the hundreds of years of oppression of the minority groups, like the Armenian massacres that we've all heard about all our lives. It wasn't just Armenians, it was all sorts of native. And when you're talking Middle East, you're talking ethnicity. Religion in the Middle East is not just religion. It is automatically ethnic. So when people say Israel is an ethno state, of course it's an ethno state. Is the Arab League not an ethno state? I mean, just who is not an ethno state in the Middle East? There's no such thing as not an ethno state. So they're trying to pretend this is the United States of Arabia. There's no such thing as that kind of mentality in the Middle East. There's no way it's you can say it's secular, but then Arabism itself is an ethnic identity. Am I making sense a little bit?
I mean, I certainly hear the points that you raise. I think that there are some things that also need to be said, in relationship to how, these respective folks are engaged, how they are allowed to have a degree of independence, whose rights supersede someone else's rights,
Right.
Where does your right to exist bump up against mine? And I just think that there has just been a lot of problematic decisions made. Like I said, I got to take a break. Jermaine is about to jump on me over here. But
I tried to tell him his thing about the third world was unbelievable. That was such a gas. I don't know what he comes up with.
Well, he hears you. He's smiling. But thank you, John. We'll pick this up.
And your thing about capitalism was so excellent yesterday. I was going to call you. That again, I remember I said to you about the college. That is cool. But anyways, I know you got to go.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the call.
Have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Look, let me take a break. I will talk a little bit about it on the other side before the guests get up in here. Be right back, y'all.
Host Michelle Bryant on WNOV.
All right, family, welcome back to the show. I just want to say to the folks on YouTube and Facebook that y'all ridiculous, man. I see y'all comments. You know, y'all are absolutely hilarious on Facebook. I can't stand y'all. I can't stand y'all. Even though I love y'all, I can't stand y'all. Y'all are so ridiculous. Oh my God. Anyway, John said a mouthful. Y'all got a whole section on John. Somebody said John's wife is on vacation.
Somebody said land the plane.
No, Lucy, you can't be on the show. I'm not playing. Y'all silly, man. Oh my God. What I will say is this, because I can't do. Somebody said his wife is on vacation. No, she is in divorce court. Yeah. John, know that this is all in love, John, because they ripping this.
They going in.
They tearing you up on social. that means you invited to the cookout, John, because they killing you on social media. Oh my God, I hate y'all. Somebody said when I left and came back. Oh my God. So look, John said a lot. I'm not going to be able to deal with it today, but we got to have the conversation. We absolutely do. Because as I said, there was, I don't know if it was Vance or whoever, Trump, some one of them, who made a comment about, these wars, and it wasn't, a fully fleshed out, articulate comment, but just simply the fact that you can't kill your way out of your issues. We got to talk about what's going on in the region, because it directly impacts us in America, although you're beginning to get pushback from American legislators like, okay, now this is enough. We keep getting dragged into these conflicts, and we don't know what the end game is. And when we're assisting and we telling you like, okay, this is how we want to, play in this. But then you trying to wipe people off the face of the earth. And I just didn't want to do the back and forth right now. Number one, because I just really don't feel good. And I need to be sharp for this conversation. I need to be sharper than this Robitussin is allowing me to be right now. So we'll have it. And I know John's like, Michelle, you keep saying that. We'll have it. Let me go to the phone line. It's the number of folks holding. Hey, caller, what's happening?
Hey, good morning.
I knew it. Hey, caller, how you doing this morning?
I'm blessed. Listen, I was listening this morning, and you guys were talking about self-hate, right?
Can you turn it up a little bit? Yeah. Okay, yes, go ahead.
You were talking about self-hate earlier.
Well, that was yesterday, but you're all right. Go ahead.
Okay, let's go. Listen, the most self-hating person is a person that wants to see somebody else come in and take his place, especially when he's a very few in numbers. A person that only owns, what we got in this country, 150,000 gas stations, and only 25 of them is black owned. You got you got so many million retail stores, and we only got about 9,500 of them. And they do it unwillingly, because we've been taught racism. We've been taught not to be racist. Okay, because if we be racist, we just like the oppressor. We've been taught that poison. And in result of that, we've got people that have come into this country, even the white folk that are dominating this, and they love it because we've been taught to really hate ourselves through saying that we are against racism. So we treat other people greater than we treat ourselves. That's the most self-hating thing a person can do, is when they push somebody else ahead of them, knowing that they ain't got nothing, no way. It's sort of like, here you ain't got but a little bit of something to eat. And it's all right to break a little something, break bread with some of the people. But guess what? If they're not helping you get in the kitchen and bake no bread, then guess what? Your breaking bread is really in vain, because you breaking bread, but they ain't coming in the bakery to help you bake. So what are you doing? You're self-hating, the worst self-hating, because you're putting other people, eventually you'll be no more. Okay? Let's just be realistic. And I don't care what nobody's saying.
Are you advocating? What are you advocating for? Are you advocating for Black people to be racist? What are you advocating for?
I'm advocating that the playbook everybody else is playing out of, we need to start playing with it. And guess what? They have actually came into our locker room.
Wait. Let's just be specific. You know, you said the playbook that other folks are playing from. A lot of these people are playing from racist playbooks. So is that what you are suggesting that we do as well? That we be racist?
Of course.
Okay, I just wanted you to say it.
You have to, because listen, if you don't, then you know what's going to happen. It's happening right now. And I don't even got to say it. All you got to do is look at it. And anybody that would advocate to bring all in and knowing where they at, and they ain't got enough for themselves, and being oppressed with the little bit that they do have, is either insane or probably been taught. They could be doing it unwillfully. I mean, what they call it, sins of ignorance, because they think it's a good thing. It sounds good. In a perfect world, it is good. But in the world we live in, it's no good. So when I see Israel with 9 million people, okay, and then you got the whole Saudi Arabia around him and all of this other stuff, Israel ain't got but about 9 million people. And guess what? I understand that those are Zionist Jews. Those are Jews that a lot of them come back in there from Europe, okay? So it's not that, but they got enough sense to understand that it ain't but 9 million of us. And if in the whole big Saudi Arabia, all around them little places, they all speak Arabic language. They all kind of move in an Arab. They all kind of move in an Arab type of way. Even the Africans that are there. And I'll tell you something else, people. When you go to the gas station, you'll see a Black man in there. But when you ask him a question, he don't talk like me and you. You know why? Because the African beholds to the Arab like the Black man beholds to the white man. Okay, that they and the reason why they start hiring the Black Africans, because we start making a squad. Why are not we in there working? You just want us to pick up cigarette butts. Okay, we know it's a low-paying, dead-end job. However, it can feed somebody. So you know what they did? They thought they was slick. They put the African in there. They ain't gonna put you in there, Michelle. They ain't gonna put me in there, Michelle. They ain't gonna put our babies in there.
Okay. So I just want to make sure.
My thing is this right here.
You want us to be.
We need to snatch our playbook back, because everybody running. They done got our playbook and everybody running. They running the protest. They running everything.
And what is our play? What is our playbook exactly? What's the book?
You know exactly what the play is.
I don't. That's why I'm asking.
The play is protest, segregate. I mean, and do the right thing. We integrated, which I guess it helped during that time. But what has happened is the train done ran, and we done got left behind. We ain't even on the caboose.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. So you're advocating for Black people to segregate themselves and to protest, and I'm not sure who we protesting, but to protest. And what was the other thing?
No, I didn't say that. I said they've stolen our playbook.
And I asked, what was our playbook? And you said it's protest.
Everything that we're using, everything that we did to gain the civil rights and keep the little rights we got, they're playing that play right now. As a matter of fact, they're playing it so cold that the Caribbean got a whole Caribbean month. We got a Juneteenth day. These other people, the Hispanics got the whole, and they did it in June. They did the Pride in June. They did everything in June to dilute and to bring Juneteenth into they want that to be a conglomerate of people. That's why they got all of these holidays, these other people holidays in June. That's to water down your little Juneteenth day. Because guess what? Now the Hispanics got theirs separate. I think theirs is in October. They got a whole month. Okay, and it's okay, but they're playing the playbook. And guess what? They got caucuses there. They got caucuses in D.C. Our little black caucus, man, has got immigrant race people in there that really is not for what we're trying to do, man. We are, if we don't wake up.
So wait,
smell the coffee,
okay.
Yeah, I gotta go.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Let me just say this. Pride Fest is celebrated in June because it commemorates Stonewall. 1969, the riots in New York, they happened on June 28th. That's why Pride is in June, because that community is celebrating, honoring, commemorating what went down in Greenwich in relationship to the riots on the gay bar called the Stonewall Inn. So, I'm just saying, it's easy to assume, we can lump all this stuff together. They coming after our holiday. They want to, but just a teensy bit of research before we start talking. Just a little bit stops us from saying things that can easily be refuted, corrected, challenged. Let me go to the next caller. Hey, caller, what's happening?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to be real brief.
Thank you.
It's amazing to me, all these people who have been absolutely nowhere, know absolutely everything about the people and the history of the people who live thousands of miles across the world, wherever. They've got an answer for it. It reminds me of all those white scientists from Europe in the 1800s that came up with the racial prototypes. It's like these people, they lived in Switzerland all their lives, never went anywhere. But they knew what an African was. They knew what a Chinese person was. They knew what a Native American person was. Never seen them. Maybe they saw their dead bones. But like from that, they figured out what a person was. We if you want to know people, you study them. And to study people, you have to be there. And not only that, you have to study real history. How politics is, I said I'd be brief, and I'm done now. Okay. All right. Politics is more power than anything. Netanyahu would be praising those Maronites today if they were going out around killing Arabs with shovels and pickaxes.
All right. I got you. Thank you. That's what I said. We got to have that conversation because there is a decided shift that is underfoot about the traditional way we've seen these relationships. I think that watching the complete, because at this point, you might as well just call it what it is. What went on with the Palestinians on the Gaza Strip, it is paramount to genocide. Like there was an effort to wipe these people out, to destroy everything culturally relevant, significant about them. And someone will say, well, they didn't kill all the people, but you killed all the systems. You wiped out the hospitals, the educational systems. Like these were things, but they were hiding, in those places. And so, you got to balance stuff out. Because we know that war is happening right now and these people are going to be harmed. Do I blow up every hospital so that nobody can get help? Because they're not getting help over here. We got to have a conversation. I don't have the energy to do it today. Let me go to the phone line. Hey, caller, what's happening? Hello.
Happy Vaseline Day. What it do?
What's going on, player? How you doing today?
Man, I'm all right. So what we're doing is putting barbed wire fence over something that you did because people keep exposing your unmyth about your water and your pool guy that had no experience and no business touching it. So that's what we're doing.
And we gonna put guards around Yogi State.
Man, I'm talking about guards like we watching Inmate.
Yeah. And but this is the thing though. You already had them in DC so you can make DC safe. So where was they at when supposedly, which nobody did it, cut up your whole pool from one end to the other end? Where was your guards at? Because that took a minute to walk.
Wait.
Reflecting pool.
First of all, you got to be a midget till you can get that low to be cutting down that low.
And I mean, all of this security, in DC, the safest city in the world now, according to you, since you came in and infiltrated with the guard. So you ain't got none of this on video? Because nobody's seen the tape. Nobody's seen any proof.
No tape. Everybody who's going to jail is people who just picked the stuff off that was floating at the top. And they took it out. First of all, if it was a slit, people just taking it out like chunks. You don't take chunks out with a slit.
Yeah, I mean, it was defective, and the people who he hired didn't know what they was doing, and all of this is apparent. No big contract, and these people are all gonna get off with nothing more than a ticket because they have no proof that these people destroyed this reflecting pool, none. But you gotta tell a lot of yourself to make make yourself feel better about your foolishness.
And you try to this is the killer part. And y'all were trying to drain it the other day. And it rained, and y'all was doing it for nothing again.
God got a sense of humor. God don't like Donald Trump. That's what you say.
And he said, "Hey, the water ain't going nowhere, fam."
Yeah, my brother took great joy in that. That boy was laughing about that for as long as Hillary Clinton was laughing at Michelle Obama saying Barack had got that Peace Prize. Yeah, it was funny.
I just do not understand this dude, and this dude be like, it was vandalism. It was Obama did it. Man, dude, if you don't get off that man, you know what, man? Because golly, dude, I know everybody's tired of you. Every excuse has got to be Obama. Dude ain't been in there for 15 years, dude. You was in there before years after that.
Yeah, it is. It's an old story at this point. But he don't have nowhere else to go. So you got to keep blaming somebody because you're not man enough to take responsibility for your own actions.
And what's the moaning noise he was doing yesterday?
I didn't hear that. My brother said something about that. What was going on?
Man, I guess he did the same moaning noise last year. And, man, I mean, it is, man, if you don't look it up, man, this dude is nasty, man. You can tell he an old nasty man that like young girls. Man, it was nasty, man.
All right, bro. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Look, let me take a second since I'm waiting on these folks. Somebody said, Michelle, can you talk about the elections we saw happening around the country yesterday? New York was one of the biggies. DC, big. Folks were paying attention because on the Democratic side of the aisle, there is a push to change the guard, to say that, hey, we're not seeing enough fight, or we're not seeing the fight being taken to Republicans in the way we'd like to see the fight. And so there's been this surge of Democrats being primary challenged by what would be considered sometimes fringe candidates, outsiders. We have folks here that identify as Democratic Socialists. And yeah, yesterday they kind of had a day. So in DC, a sister by the name of Janice George, she paved the pathway to the mayor's office, because we got a real situation going on there. they said that, she talks about subsidized or even free childcare, increased down payment assistance for home buyers, community resources to reduce crime, a promise to aggressively confront Donald Trump, attempts to reshape DC, but she's a Democratic socialist. And so people are like, wait, what's happening? In New York, when they talked about trying to figure out the new mayor, only 6 months in, Zohran Mamdani, are you going to be able to kind of shift the political landscape in New York? And what does that mean? Yeah, somebody was just saying Mamdani backed 2 candidates and they knocked out, traditional Dems. So there is I tell people don't get too excited, because you won 4-5 races. You know how many races happen all over the country, and the majority of these are not won by Democratic socialists. But you also don't want to ignore it either. One of the things that they say that the Democratic Socialists of America, they have seen their membership ranks swell from a few thousand to now roughly over 100,000 nationwide. But when you think about voters in Republican Party, Democratic Party, these numbers are in the millions. Like I said, 77 million people voted for Trump, 75 million or so voted for Kamala Harris, 90 million people didn't vote at all. Now, if Democratic Socialists say we about to try to make inroads with them 90 million that didn't vote, or the independents that swing back and forth, then you may have a problem on your hand. The one thing that folks are saying is that while, yes, some of these races have caught people off guard, this is not a nationally coordinated effort. Like they are not, like you can see Dems and Republicans because the party infrastructure is huge. The money is there. They've been doing this for years. And so in Wisconsin, we can go and play in a race down in Florida. We got the wherewithal to got money, resources to be able to go say, hey, what's going on down there? We're trying to protect the seat. We're trying to, help somebody be able to reach more voters. We can spend some money in that area. So I'm just telling people, don't get overly amped that the Democratic Socialists about to take over, because they not. But do they have the ability to affect outcomes? They do, particularly if they are better organized and are willing to show up when other folks won't vote. When Francesca Hong was talking about her gubernatorial race, one of the things she said when we were over at Howard Fuller's Academy is that she has 6,000 volunteers on the ground. Now, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't believe any of the other Democratic candidates in the race could say they had 6,000 volunteers on the ground working for them. And I don't know if Francesca Hong was, padding her numbers, or if that's the legit number. There's no reason to believe that it's not the legit number. But somebody just corrected and said Mamdani backed 3 candidates and all 3 got in. And I'm gonna just tell you, I didn't watch a whole bunch of it last night because again, I'm fighting, trying to stay alive. But excuse me. But when you talk about somebody able to build that kind of momentum, what that looks like. But the primary is one thing. Getting this done in the general election is something very, very different. So we will see. But yeah, some folks got surprised last night. We are going to, because I think here in Wisconsin, I can count on one hand the number of Democrats I know that are elected officials that identify as Democratic Socialists. Okay, I can count on one hand. And if I think about the local organizing and activities, it's small. But we've seen in tight races, people be able to shift momentum one way or another. So I will just continue to say, yep, keep your eyes, posted, pay attention. But I do think that some of the things that these folks are talking about, it certainly connects to a number of urban issues. I was talking to some people yesterday who's just, because we had, and I haven't talked about it yet. And and I apologize because I'm working from my cell phone today. But there is something getting ready to happen in I think it's on July 1, changes to childcare. And let me see if I can find that real quick, because I want to get this Ketanji, and now I'm just ad-libbing y'all because I have prepared to have a guest. So now I am going to bring in some different elements, but there is going to be a major shift in childcare payments as we get ready to go into July 1. So more specifically, for Milwaukee childcare providers, the major July 1 transition is the expiration of the state's pandemic era childcare bridge payments that are ending at the end of this month. Thousands of facilities, local daycares are facing funding losses, which may lead to tuition increases, wait lists, closures of these daycares. So what's happening? We had an emergency child care bridge payment program, which happened after the expiration of the federal child care accounts program ends. And approximately 1,400 child care providers in Milwaukee County are losing this monthly subsidy, which is going to force centers to either raise their rates, or some of these centers are going to have to close. And what that means in terms of who will be able to access child care, because parents are going to have to be able to pick up that extra cost that's getting ready to be now passed on to consumers. So the game is getting ready to change for a bunch of people. So you got Democratic socialists talking about stuff like subsidized or free child care. Is people going to pay attention to that? And you still got Democrat in your name, in your title. So I'm a regular Dem. I'm not a Democratic socialist, but I might be willing to cross over because you're speaking to some of the issues that are consuming me and my family. So I'm just saying, I'm not poo-pooing it. We need to pay attention. We need to understand what this means, because there are folks, I'm telling you right now, who are banking on this division in the Democratic Party, this fissure, and it is going to be something to watch. One of the other things that I want to say, I got a phone call from somebody yesterday who said, man, and I don't know what this is. Some of it just special. But I was sleeping on Ketanji. I said, what you mean you were sleeping on Ketanji? I wasn't really feeling her. What you mean you wasn't really feeling Ketanji? Okay. Well, what is it that you are impressed with now about Ketanji? And so some of them that, felt like, she married to a white dude. I don't really know where her priorities lie. Clarence Thomas done sold us down the river. Is this just another, situation? But the person who called me, they said when they listened to Ketanji's dissent on the decision that was made regarding the Rastafarian brother who had his locks forcibly cut off his head, that they were like, whoa, she brought the heat. I said, you haven't been paying attention. Ketanji been bringing the heat since she been there. But if you are not familiar with this case, there was this brother who was serving like it wasn't a long term, like he had months. He had to do a 5-month sentence or something like that. And so he had locks, he had dreadlocks, and he's a Rastafarian, and they the ones that practice them the way he does, they don't cut their hair. The locks are, a part of the religion, and they don't cut their hair. So as he is being transitioned to a more minimum security prison, because he was in for a 5-month sentence for a drug-related charge. So as his name is Damon Landor. So as he is moved, and this is all taking place down in Louisiana, to another facility where he only is going to be there for about 3 weeks. He's only going to be there for about 3 weeks to serve out. And I take it back. It was just days. It wasn't a long period of time just to serve out the remainder of his little 5-month sentence. He would carry with him a note, a physical copy of a Supreme Court case that upheld that prisons are prohibited from cutting Rastafarians' hair. So when he was moving throughout the prisons, he kept that information with him so that when folks start talking about, no, it's our policy, you can't have your hair, blah, blah, blah. No, there's a Supreme Court case that upheld that I could keep my hair like this because it's a part of my religion. Despite him providing that, the corrections officers threw his papers in the trash. So that was his property. They threw it away. They held him down, and then they proceeded to shave his head. So they didn't just cut his locks. They shaved his head. He had been growing his locks for 20 years. It is something, a part of what's called the Nazareth vow, allowing his hair to grow to his knees is what he was doing in relationship to his religious beliefs. And Justice Brown said, quote, Damon Landor's Rastafarian faith requires him to let the locks of the hair of his head grow. The Holy Bible, Numbers 6:5, King James Version. For a Rastafari like Landor, locks are the physical embodiment of spiritual identity and connection to God. But the conservative majority, including Step and Fetch It, Clarence Thomas, argued that the federal law enacted under the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act in 2000, which requires state and local prisons that receive federal funds to accommodate religious freedoms, does not compel the state to award money damages to Landor because the prison guards in question did not, quote, consent to Congress's authority where the state did. So let me be clear. So the state know that it was illegal for them to cut that man's hair. But the silly Supreme Court justices, in trying to enact their foolishness, they said, well, the guards didn't agree to that. But when you become an employee of the state, you consent to the way the state is doing business. But just the mean-spiritedness of, they knew that man wasn't going to be there but a few days. They knew he was on his way home. He was only there as the last step in the process. This ain't no horrible, murderer. This man was only in jail for 5 months. And these ignorant guards, why you throw away his documentation about the court case? And then you don't just cut his hair, because there's nothing that says that you have to be bald-headed in prison. They didn't just cut his hair, they shaved his head. For folks that live in the Sherman Park area, you will see members of the Jewish community, and on this, my lack of knowledge will be clear. But there are some Jewish gentlemen, they let the sideburns, the sides of their hair grow really long. And you can see like the curls at, underneath their hats and stuff. But so I'm just saying. So Had one of those people been in prison, would they have cut that off? Would somebody have honored that? But just the idea that this man is only here for a few days. Why are you doing this to him? And that the Supreme Court justices are trying to figure out a way to justify this nonsense. I even think about the Crown Act and all the work that's been done to say, you should be able to protect Black hairstyles in the way we show up in the workplace and at school. I think about that little Black boy who had locks, his family. This is what they've been doing for 20, 30 years in his family. And then the school decides you can't come to school here with, this is our policy. Yeah, but your policy don't supersede my religious freedom. But it's funny, like everything else, when is religious freedom respected? And for some groups, it just does not seem like it's respected. In the United States military, I think there were over 100 recognized religions until Pete Hegseth came in to be the Secretary of Defense. He has now reduced that to only 31 that will be acknowledged and respected. How you get to decide for me what I believe and what you should respect? And particularly if what I believe in no way is infringing upon your rights, harming you, generally a problem for public safety. How do you get to decide that? I got to take a break. But just think about what the Supreme Court just did. Ketanji, Justice Brown's dissent was 29 pages. When I tell you she walked the floor on their head, that's just to walk the floor. But to just know there's that little Black face in Clarence Thomas sitting on the other side. Every right, everything that's being done to strip away power from Black people, his Black face is sitting right there for the go along to get along. The I've been hurt by somebody in my life. Now I'm going to make everybody else feel the pain. Just an awful, disgusting, disgruntled little man. You could have never made me, and you got Thurgood Marshall's seat. I got to take a break. I'll be right back.
Real with your host, Michelle Bryant on WNOV.
All right, family, welcome back. So we got a couple minutes on the show. Let me go to the phone line. Hey, caller, what's happening?
Hey, good evening, Michelle. Well, good evening, good morning.
I know. I'm like, evening. It is dark outside, but what's going on? What's going on?
I heard you talk about, you said they don't respect, people's religious beliefs, but you know what they do respect? They respect their religions with them little boys and little girls getting raped, consider majority of them people in that Bible as pedophiles. They respect that all day. Sitting up there, the girls 12 and 13 years old being married. They respect that sugar honey iced tea all day. But anything else, they ain't gonna respect that. But let a little 12-year-old girl getting married off for a four-legged cow, they'll be on the front line. Have a good Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Wait, somebody said for all of us that are complaining about our bills, we are getting free water as we speak. Don't forget to check into the rainbow systems for your homes. Like rain barrels and stuff. Rain barrels. I'm assuming that's what it is. Okay. Let me go to the phone line. Hey, caller, what's happening? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Hey.
I
got a solution. Hello?
Yes, what'd you say?
I got a solution.
To what?
I got a solution.
What is the solution to?
Why is it always like
when people get in a fight, why is it always people, when people break up, why is it always the people fighting,
Okay, so what's the solution?
Why is it always when people fight, like when they break up and they throw things and they get mad?
Okay, I got the question. So did you have a solution to it?
Yeah.
What's the solution?
Like, I've seen all these, like, kidnapping movies.
Okay.
Yeah. And why is it always, like, the murdering and all the,
You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, so we're gonna think about the question you raised, and then we'll figure out what some of our suggested solutions are too. Okay.
I've seen the kidnapping movie with Keke Palmer.
Okay.
You know that Keke Palmer movie? I forgot that movie was called.
I haven't seen it, but I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that movie a lot. And why is it always the criminals that got away with it? Why is it always that?
I'm not sure, but look, I'm up against the break. But thank you, bro. I appreciate the questions. You've raised some good ones. How do we deal with violence in relationships? How do we part ways and it doesn't have to turn into drama? I appreciate that. Let me take a second and acknowledge something that's in the chat on Facebook. It says, when you are captive in war or are in prison, regular rules and laws do not apply, period. You are wrong, Mr. Barnes. Religious freedoms are protected even though you are in prison. Now, there may be some restrictions, but you don't lose your religious rights because you are incarcerated. As the man said, he was walking around with a decision by the Supreme Court in his hand as proof that folks that were incarcerated still had access to religious freedoms. Roll that back for me a little bit, Clark, so I can see the rest of it. It's the one he said, that much hair is a health. Okay, you're right here. That much hair is a health risk for lice. Just don't go to jail and keep your hair in life. There are more important issues where people are losing their life. Again, first of all, we don't get to decide for somebody else what should be important to them and their priority. That's his faith. That's that person's religious beliefs. And whether we believe the same way, we value somebody else's religion, that religion has been around for a long time. It's not new, it's not recent, it's not made up. It's been around for a long time. But this whole piece about lice, you never see black people with lice in their hair. Hardly ever. And I won't even go down the road about who hair be having lice in it. The only time black people be running into lice is when our kids is at daycare with other people's kids. But that's not something we get. And the number, I'm looking at a brother with locks in his hair right now. I'm sure he could tell you it's nothing unhealthy about his hair and that he's never had lice. So we got to stop with the things that we think versus what's factual. Regular white people hair has lice more often than anybody black or anybody with locks in their hair. I mean, we just got to be factual. Usually, if a black child or a black person gets lice, you don't definitely hear about black adults having lice. It's usually children who've been at a daycare or a school setting and they got it from other kids. So it's that kind of stuff that we just put out here and we say like it's factual. When you're captive in war or in prison, regular rules and laws do not apply, period. Yeah, they do. We actually have what's called rules of engagement. When John McCain was a prisoner of war, there were certain rules that were in place when he was offered the freedom to leave because he was an officer. And he refused to leave because he had men that had lower rank than him, but he would not leave behind. That's why when I was talking about Israel and they said that 30% of the people that have been killed in Israel have been children, and people are now beginning to call this a genocide because there are rules, even in war. There are rules about how you treat people. You don't get to be inhumane to people and disrespect all their rights because you at war with their country. So we have rules about how we treat soldiers that are captured. We have rules about what infrastructure we will bomb and what we will tear up. Those 200 students and teachers that got killed, the people weren't supposed to get killed in war just because it's a war going on. And there needs to be an investigation into how Israel ended up killing 200 children and teachers at a school that nobody seems to be remorseful about. There are rules. Let me go to the phone line. Hey, caller, what's happening?
Hello?
Yes.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, I just want to revisit a couple of things that came up on your show earlier. When you were talking about that Supreme Court ruling that said that those guards didn't agree to whatever the state had agreed to with the federal government. So is Clarence Thomas and his gang also saying murder is a federal crime? Can those guards commit murder? That's a loophole.
Well, and you know what? It's interesting that you use that word because that is one of the words that Ketanji, and I need to give this woman her proper respect, but that's one of the things that the justice was saying, Justice Brown was saying, because she was like, no, you creating loopholes where people get to, engage in behaviors that we know are illegal, but because you're saying that contract wasn't directly made with the employee, it was made with the state, we get to bypass it. And so she made that exact point that we're creating loopholes now that people will certainly try to take advantage of.
So if you're a guard in a federal prison and you kill somebody, they can point to that ruling that says, well, we didn't buy into that as far as our contract with the federal government goes. I mean, that's crazy.
That's absolutely crazy.
And the other thing I wanted to get to was I had to laugh at your boy Meech.
Okay.
He comes in defending Juneteenth Day against all the other cultures, but didn't say one word about Trump and his Republicans or how they're destroying our culture.
Never does.
Never
does. Never does.
I mean, I said he done lost his mind.
Never does.
He hollering at all the Asian cultures and the Latino cultures and everything, and here Trump don't even want to feed our people. He's taking food out off the table of kids. Him and his party, they won't give kids free lunches, won't give mothers help with daycare. I mean, he done lost his. I ain't gonna say it. He done lost his mind. I'll just leave it like that. Y'all have a good day.
All right, thank you, bro. I appreciate it. Let me go to this last caller. Hey, caller, what's happening? Hello.
Oh, hello. Oh, there you are. Good morning, Miss Michelle Bryant.
What's going on, sir? How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. Good morning, gentlemen.
I'm good. Look,
Michelle, just quickly, when you was talking about the rules of engagement in war, I believe since World War I, they had something that's called the Geneva Convention.
Absolutely.
You don't kill kids, you don't kill grandparents and all of that. You don't do that. But unfortunately, Israel don't know what the Geneva Convention is, obviously. So I just want to say that real quickly, Michelle. And thank you. You have a good day. Take care of that cold, dear.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. And let me just end here because I got to get out of here. But I appreciate, like the number of brothers that are paying attention to a lot of these political issues and conversations and pointing out things. It's not lost on me. I get a lot of stuff from folks. One brother sent and just was like, just make sure you highlight $186 billion cut to SNAP benefits has been signed into law. It's the largest reduction to food assistance in U.S. history. Under Donald Trump's stupid, big, beautiful bill act, they cut $187 billion from nutrition programs, which is going to span over the course of 10 years. It reshapes eligibility rules, benefit calculations, and state level flexibility in ways that will directly shrink monthly payments for households already stretching tight budgets. That's why I said when Will Martin was on his show and he was talking about, food dye, and we working hard to get rid of the blue M&Ms because of the food dye. I'm like, but you cut the WIC program, which actually supplied fresh fruits and vegetables to children. So you running around excited that you cut out the blue M&Ms, but you cut vegetables and fruit. And $186 billion, but we got more money for wars, more money for painting reflecting pools, and to take Trump's name off and on buildings all day. I gotta go. But bros, I appreciate y'all for being engaged and keep the stories coming. All right, family, that's the show today. I'm sorry I wasn't 100%, but we're going to try it again tomorrow. Brothers in the studio, I appreciate you. Folks on YouTube and Facebook, love y'all. And to our listeners on regular radio, y'all my people. Talk to y'all tomorrow. Peace.